Cherie, are you available? Let me take you off of mute. Hold on one second. Hope I'm saying your name right. Cherie, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi.
Hey, yeah, we seem to have that at the beginning of the year as far as retiring the duplicate IDs. But I'm with Colin when they say they're just too busy to do it, you know, so.
Right, and I understand the beginning of the year is a busy time for those campus clerks, and they have lots of people pulling them different directions, and I know there's other software that are depending on that unique ID before they can get students enrolled in their particular program or software application. And so we understand that, you know, it's a busy time at the beginning of the year.
Right.
Do you have any suggestions on what we could do or how we could train differently?
I really don't, other than, you know, we just try to let ours know that, you know, try to keep it as clean as they can. Ours do a good job of it. Dara stays on them.
Good for her.
So,
yeah.
All right. Thanks, Sherry.
Yeah. And Norma commented there are LEAs that only plug in the unique ID in their sys and don't run the unique ID batch to update. Okay, so they're manually typing in the unique ID instead of actually uploading it.
You want to take her off of mute? Norma, let me take you off of mute.
Share if that seems to work well, or
hey, Norma.
Yeah, it just seems like maybe they don't have a good SIF that does these extracts for TAs for unique ID assignments. So they plug in the unique ID, they do a person search, and if they find a student, and then they struggle throughout the whole year, especially we figured towards at the end of the year we had this SPP pet match that was going on, and there were so many that were not updated to the latest LEA, so they all had to do like unique ID assignments on these in order to make that pet match go through.
Wow.
So I don't know, it's bad practice. We don't tell them to do that. We tell them to let the system do it for you, and
right, and that unique ID number is so long. I can see that it would be pretty easy to pose a number or get it entered wrong in your system. So yeah, I can see where
they don't know this until they send a PET file or a PINS file.
Right. Okay. Well, that's interesting information. That's good to know.
Okay.
So, thank you, Norma. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Norma.
I like what Colin said. Data integrity. That's right. That's what the ESCs have done in the past on, you know, kid error maintenance, and just we've got to continue that now in unique ID. So great answers. I like your sharing, and we can all get some interesting information by sharing these facts with each other. So as we continue on, some of the resources for unique ID issues are the TSDS Unique ID User Guide, and that is right here on the TSDS homepage, right down here, TSDS Unique ID User Guide. That's a good resource for your LEAs as they're, you know, maybe just beginning to work in unique ID, because like someone else said, there's always new staff at your LEAs, and it's, you know, that's a continuous process to keep them trained and up to date on how the process works. And then another good resource are always our KB articles, and KB article 278 and 242 focus on retiring duplicate IDs and what the process is. and KB Article 311 gives some guidance on editing the master record, and then KB Article 241 addresses cases where you have, it appears that you have two students using the same Social Security number, and how you would handle a situation like that, because that could be a problem too. It could be a transposure, or just, you know, that can happen occasionally. That KB article will give you some guidance on how to work through an issue like that if you have it. And so those are good resources there that you can share with your LEAs as they're working through unique ID issues. So let's take a look at what's new for unique ID. Unique ID version 10.1.1 will be coming out in August. You'll see this, I believe, near the beginning of August. You will begin to see the new look of unique ID, and it's really not a big change. In fact, there's no change to the functionality. It's just in the way it will appear on your screen. And I've logged into our test database, and I'm going to show you what it will look like when you do a person search and you pull up your person here. You will now see in this top little section here a little bit of a different look here. You'll see their basic information, their local ID, Social Security number, and it'll, if it's a student or a staff person, and then you'll see the last time it was updated, their unique ID, and then the day that this record was actually created. And all of that information is pretty much what you've seen before. It's just all on one screen here. And then instead of the history information being at the bottom of your screen, they're going to add a history tab. So you would click on history, and yeah, I was afraid that was going to happen. Let me get logged back in. Well,
while you're getting logged back in, Deborah, let me just ask one question of the audience, because there was an interesting comment that came in. I think it was Renee typed a statement in about sometimes third-party vendors rush the districts to update unique ID and they get too much in a hurry. And I've heard that from a number of LEAs that use other applications that require that they use their unique ID information. And so if it's a new student coming in and they want to put them into this other application, they're required to have a unique ID for that student. And so they sometimes might, as Renee indicated, they get rushed. And so what sort of things do you see the LEAs doing in that crunch, or does that create some sort of a systemic problem that you see? Because I know it's pretty widespread across the state. Are you guys having any experience with those sort of problems or challenges? You can type in or raise your hand and we'll unmute you if you want to. I can talk to that a little bit. Because I know Renee, if that's what your statement is towards, where the other app, the apps that require the unique ID information, is that, can you talk to some of that a little bit, Renee?
You can take her off of mute here. Hey, Renee.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Basically, when I was working for a large school district, we had like 40,000 kids, and the software that the teachers were using, they couldn't see the roster of their kids unless the unique ID was available. So it would start maybe approaching the end of September, and we might have 1,000 kids that still need to be reviewed. And we'd get so pressured that by a certain time we just kind of had to click the button. And otherwise you have a bunch of mad teachers. And so, you know, when you have 60 campuses and 40,000 kids, you're updating the master because you're being forced into that scenario.
And for some reason they're not matching.
A lot of it's middle name stuff, and when you're trying to train these campuses, you know, they're still putting in middle initials instead of middle names and things of that nature, and then you're wanting to verify the middle names. And in our case, there was a lot of Mexican birth certificates that were not being entered correctly, and so on and so forth. So you're still trying to resolve all the training issues at start of school with new clerk level staff at the campuses, and it all just couldn't happen quickly enough to verify the integrity of what they're entering in the system.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Gotcha. So pretty much a problem for large school districts that would just have so many of these things. Percentage-wise, it might be small, but just the sheer number is a lot of verification to do. So I definitely see the problem there. So thanks for sharing that, Renee. Are there any others that experienced anything like any sort of problem like that? Not showing a raise of hands. Okay. All right. Thanks, Deborah. Pardon the interruption.
Okay, great. Well, I got logged back in. That was perfect timing. Gave me a chance to get logged back in. So now I'm here in our test database, and we've looked at the master record, how it's going to look. And John, our SME, sent me a message that the new Unique ID 10.1.1 will come out on Friday, August the 11th. So you can look for it on that date. And when you get into the new system in August, then you will have a history tab that you can click on, and this will show you all the history for this particular student, and each line will have a drop-down arrow that you can click on to view more information about that particular line, like, you know, what district put that information in, submitted that information, and the batch number. It was a batch file and the reference number. You can just see all kinds of really good information here. And on this history, on my test student, you can see that the race has changed several times, which happens, and also the last entry, the gender changed, which is kind of interesting, but could happen. So this is what kind of information you'll see on the history tab. Then in the next new tab is the associated retired ID tab, and my particular test student didn't have any retired IDs, but if a student did have retired IDs, you would be able to see all the prior unique IDs that had been assigned to this student, and you can see that they were retired and a reason for their retirement. So this is a good screen where you can see if there have possibly been other unique IDs attached to this student. And in August, all three of these tabs will be available, and you'll be able to, you know, train your LEAs that this is what it's going to look like. And back on my PowerPoint presentation, I do have snapshots of what those screens will look like. So you'll be able to see the three new tabs here on my PowerPoint, and then what it looks like inside each of the screen. Now the biggie's coming when we go to Unique ID 10.3.0. That's going to be the big change. That's when PET and Unique ID will merge, and this is all coming about as TEA moves toward retiring Edit Plus, and so this will take place in the spring of 2018. It's when the merge will actually happen. And your vendors are kind of already being given a heads up on this, and they will create a separate extract in their software for PET that will be uploaded into the LEA system. And the LEAs will perform one extract, that will be uploaded to the unique ID system to assign unique ID numbers, just as they currently do. That part will not change. And then this extract file, in the name of the file, will say student or staff in the name, so that your LEAs will be able to distinguish which extract they're looking at. And it's strongly recommended that the LEAs do the unique ID extract first, upload it into the unique ID system, assign the unique ID numbers, and then download that back into their SIS and get the unique ID numbers in their SIS before they do the new PET extract. And then once that's all done, they will have a place in their student information system or their software that they will do the new PET extract, and they will upload this into the unique ID system just as they currently do their weekly PET submissions. And this file in the name will have ET Edward Tom events in the file name. So it will say ET events, where the unique ID file name will say student or staff in the file name. Your LEAs will upload this file, and this will create the enrollment information in unique ID that they are accustomed to seeing in the PET system that we're currently on. And I'm going to log in now to our another environment, and I'll show you what the enrollment, the new enrollment tab will look like. Okay, this is now I'm in the development environment, and like I said, this is still under development, and it's changing as our developers test and research. They're still in the process of making some changes to how it's going to look. So if it looks a little different, don't be surprised. But right in our development environment, this is what it looks like today. You will see the three tabs we talked about that you'll see in August will be here, and then you'll also see the new enrollment tab. And we now okay. Okay. Well, let me. David, can you feel? Have you got anything you want to say while I'm trying to get back in?
Okay. Just some added items that were mentioned. That 10.1.1, the minor screen look and feel change will be in August. The exact date for that is August 11th is when that will roll out. And that's just where that's not where we're talking about enrollment, but just where the history tab will be changing up at the top that she showed you. And the other items we want to talk about. And Colin asked about the training dates for 10.3. We'll have those for you. I mean, it's going to be, the system is going to be going live. I don't know if that we have an exact date on that. John, do reply if we have an exact date on when it will go into production in the spring, but the training time for that will probably be in the December-January time frame. So that's what we're looking at, just to give you guys time to intern. But once we get a better idea on the final deployment date for the when in spring the 10.3 will roll out, we'll have a better idea of the training time frame. But be looking for it in the early part of 2018.
Okay, great. Thanks, David. I'm back in now to our development environment, so I can now show you the enrollment tab. When I click on the enrollment tab, this looks very similar to what we're used to seeing in the PET. You'll see a line for each enrollment event, and this is the entry event when they enrolled at this LEA. This is the exit when they withdrew at this LEA. And you'll have the ability to, like we did in PET, where you can make notes on the entry. Like, for instance, on this exit, if I edit the enrollment line on my exit line, I can come down here on the enrollment withdrawal flag, and I can mark it like, you know, we have a lot of calendar differences, so you could mark it as a calendar difference, and then edit it. And then when I go back, then you can see that I had marked the reason. If there were another line here where another school enrolled them on 5/19, then I've marked that that was a calendar difference is the reason our dates look like they overlap. So that's, I mean, it's just going to be very similar to what we're used to seeing in PET, but it'll all be in the same system in the unique ID system.
Deborah,
So,
is there a presumed duplicate field where they can indicate that?
that would be a question for John.
Because the other question that came up was, will it be a calendar verify? And I think you just showed that, and that will remain after it. And they say, where can we flag their presumed duplicate students? John, or you guys might have to unmute John on that if you can.
Yeah, John Reese. Hey, John. I don't think John's connected audibly. He's kind of grayed out there.
While we're waiting to see if John can answer that question, Norma, your question about what about deleting events, here on where I showed you how you could add a comment, there's a delete tab there. You can mark that that event was deleted. I assume that's what you were asking. And I'm just going to switch back to my PowerPoint, and I'm going to show you this. Like I said, this is still in development, and from the time that screen that I showed you in our development environment until today, there's already been some changes, and this screenshot shows what the screen is proposed to look like today. They've added some more fields. I believe the school year field has been added, and the contact email like we had in the old Edit Plus system, where you could see who entered this line and you could click their email address and email them directly from this page. And so, you know, there still may be some more changes made as they're testing, but this is just to kind of give you an idea of what's proposed.
It looks like John answered. I don't know if it's the question David asked, but David, was the question, he's saying the current plan is March 5th to release? Is that what the question was?
Okay, so yeah, one question was the release date, and he said March 5th. And the other question was about the presumed duplicate kids. Is there a way, I guess they can do that in Edit Plus today, say that they're presuming this is a duplicate kid. And that question came from Renee. So if we could get Renee to, let's see.
I can get Renee. Let's see. Hey, Renee, I took you off of mute. Hi. Hey
No,
again.
they just use the verify calendar flag to reconcile their presumed duplicate student report. So they didn't really flag their duplicates. They would run the report, and then as they put the calendar and the verify flags in there, when the report would rerun, that flag would be displayed. So it kind of answered my question, just that the flag is still there.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
And Norma, I believe, asked a question on how many years back with will PET history show after they do the merge. And I think that's still something they're looking at. I'm not sure they have.
Yeah, right now it's still at 2, but they're I think when you guys are here in next month for the PEAMS training, they'll have a update for you on that, but at present they're looking at 2 years of history to roll over from the PET system.
Okay, great. Well, y'all have had some great comments and some really good questions, and I know that that's helpful to kind of get a look ahead of what's coming in the future, and so you can kind of start focusing on how you're going to train your LEAs. And your questions were really good, and as we learn more information, we will pass it along to you. And like David said, in August when you're here, I know John is working on a presentation for this new unique ID rollout that he's going to do in August, and then we'll provide more training once the environment is actually out there where we can show you the real thing.
We actually have John on now. His phone's working now. Let me take him off of mute here.
Okay.
Here we go, John.
Good morning, everyone. I believe the question was about duplicate enrollments.
Yes,
Yeah.
David.
Yeah, and actually, I think with the calendar and flag, I think we answered Renee's question on that. So we did get a answer for that one already. And was there anything else we had for John? Yeah.
I don't believe so. Deborah?
Yeah, I think the one question we did have, we had inadvertently answered it with the earlier demonstration.
Well, just so you know, is we are migrating the majority of the current PET reports to be available within the unique ID application once we roll it out in the early part of March. And one of those reports is the duplicate enrollment report.
Okay. And John, are we still looking at 2 years of history at this point? Or I know that's kind of being discussed, but is it still at 2 years?
Yes, sir. It should still be the 2 years. The reason we chose the early spring time frame is to let everyone get through with their fall 2018 collection in its entirety, and then we will migrate that information for current year into unique ID, and then we'll back up one previous year and migrate that into unique ID.
Okay, great. John, thank you for sharing that with us and providing us with the updates on the reports. I know that's something that everybody probably had in the back of their mind, wondering if those reports would migrate.
Not a problem. There will be quite a bit of information that we will be going over in the ESE vendor training in early August.
All righty. Perfect. Perfect. All
Thanks,
right. I think we've answered all of our questions, and I don't see anything else coming in now. So I'm going to turn it over to Shabana. She has a wealth of information to share with you about ECDS. And so we're going to let her do her ECDS presentation. And as always, if questions come up, you can always email us later, and we'll do our best to get the answers for you. All right, Sean, let's switch it over to Shabana.
Will do. Hold on 1 second. All right, Shabana, you are the presenter.
Unmuted.
Good morning,
Shabana, you
everyone.
need to unmute yourself. Oh.
Can
There.
we, Sean, can you go ahead and make sure everybody can hear me and see my screen, please?
Yes, can we get a show of hands? See if, can you hear me and Shabana? Got some hands coming up. Yep, looks like everybody's there. Can hear you.
All right, perfect. She is very low volume. All right, is that better?
That's test, yes.
All right,
We're getting
perfect.
yeses.
All right, good morning, everyone. So I'm going to take the next 30 to 40 minutes to go over some ECDS updates. Before I begin providing you those updates, I just want to make sure that everybody can access the handouts that are in the materials section in your go-to training panel. It's under the materials section. everybody should be able to access the materials for the unique ID and the ECDS refresher. I know earlier it wasn't accessible, but you can certainly access them now.
Yeah, just FYI, someone made a comment, there are 3. The third item is a spreadsheet that shows the training materials with the passwords, just FYI.
All right, perfect. Okay. All right, and I just wanted to say thank you. I had a chance to look at all the responses from your registration questions that we had sent out on the data loading process for the various ECDS program types. And once again, that is all basic information. The purpose of those questions was just to make sure you had a quick refresher on, what data is required to be loaded, especially because this year, we had changes with ECDS where the demographic data was coming from the PEIMS summer collection, and then the assessment information was coming from the spreadsheets if your vendors did not have those extract capabilities. So a lot of those questions were just refresher questions. What we're going to focus on today is more updated information. So I'm going to begin by providing you with some submission due dates. And so we'll talk about now that we're in PEIMS Summer 2, what impact does that submission due date have as far as preparing and finalizing your ECDS submissions. And then next we'll talk about the required interchanges that are needed for the KG, public pre-K, and private pre-K programs. We've been getting a lot of tickets on where the LEAs are clicking on that prepare button and they're getting that error message because that demographic data is not being populated where the record counts are showing 0. So I just kind of wanted to touch on that and outline what the required interchanges are by category and subcategory for each of the program types. Next, I have a few ECDS scenarios that we came up with. There are 4 scenarios, and so that's where a lot of the interaction is going to come in. And so we'll try to make it as fun as Deborah made it for Unique ID. So I want to count on you guys for that. I just want to point out when we get into the scenarios, those are just 4 common scenarios that we came up with. There are several other scenarios, but those are just going to provide you with some guidance, okay, as far as the steps that are needed to prepare for your ECDS submissions. And then lastly, we're going to talk about the top 3 known issues that we've been receiving a lot of tickets for, and so I will be providing some updates on that. And then we'll finish with resources. We have several KB articles, FAQ documents in the TIMS knowledge base repository where we constantly update those. The support team does a great job in providing those updates in those KB articles. But for this webinar, I mainly want to focus on these 4 items. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first item that we're going to talk about is the 2016-2017 TSDS PEIMS and ECDS submission due dates. And so with the close of PEIMS Summer 1 submission, and now that we're in PEIMS Summer 2, LEAs will need to submit any demographic, any program data corrections for ECDS in the 2017 PEIMS Summer resubmission, okay? And so that submission date closes July 20th. So even though the ECDS 2016-27 submission due date is August 17th, and the LEAs may think, okay, I have over a month, if there's any changes from your PEIMS Summer 1, if there's any changes to their demographic data, please have your LEAs make those corrections and have those submitted by July 20th. After July 20th, there will be no opportunity to correct any of the PEIMS demographic, course section, or staff data for ECDS. We've been getting some questions through the TIMS tickets and the customer support mailbox, where a few LEAs are saying we're going to be out for the summer, and we've got, the resubmission due date that's closing on July 20th, and, we have some time for ECDS because that's in August 17th, but I really want to stress right now that please communicate to your LEAs that if they haven't started preparing their ECDS submissions, they should do so. That way, if there's any discrepancies in any of the data that's coming from PEIMS, such as the demographic, course section, or staff information, they have an opportunity to correct that, which has to be done before July 20th, okay? After July 20th, if the LEAs find any discrepancies, any issues with their data that's, showing up on their ECDS reports, at that point, they're not going to be able to make those corrections, by uploading any new files. They're going to have to contact Howard. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Just had a note. We have SME on the line, Ed, for ECDS, and he wanted to make a comment about the close date for the PEIMS summer submission too before you went any further.
Sure.
Let me see if I can get him off of mute here. I don't see him on. I'll just unmute John. Maybe he's on John's phone. Hey, John, is he at your phone?
Yeah, he is, Sean.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Ed. And I apologize, this is Shabana. We sent out an FCN supplemental communication yesterday that the PEIMS resubmission will be open in the ODS only until August 17th. So if there is any demographic course section information that needs to be fixed for the PK or KG collections, they can still go ahead and fix those. Okay, it's just the PEIMS application itself will be closed out, but the ODS for PEIMS resubmission will be open. So they can fix anything up until August 17th.
Oh, okay. So then that July 20th does not apply for ECDS. Is that correct, Ed?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, that really changes things. Thanks for that update, Ed.
Thank you, Ed.
Thanks.
All right. So with that update, please do not contact Howard Morrison at ECDS if you find any discrepancies, in your ECDS reports concerning your PEIMS demographic data. Go ahead and correct that information, extract those files, send, upload those files, and then, you'll be able to make those changes up till August 17th, which is the submission due date for ECDS. Okay. Private pre-Ks that wish to participate in ECDS must have their BPD forms filled out by July 28th. And so if you have any private pre-Ks, please make sure that those BPD forms are filled out by July 28th. July 28th is the cutoff, and they can request that by emailing the ECDS at tea.texas.gov. There's additional information on how to set up a BPD in the TAA letter that can be accessed through the TSDS website, but just make sure you get that in by July 28th if you have a private pre-K that wants to participate and does not have their BPD form submitted already. All right. Just out of curiosity, just so we know where we are as far as where your LEAs are in completing their ECDS submissions, I'm going to launch a poll question just to kind of get a feel of where the LEAs are in completing their ECDS submissions. So Sean, I'm going to launch the poll question, okay?
Okay.
All right. And you should see the question. All right. All right, a few more seconds. Okay. 3, 2, 1. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll question. All right, and let me make sure. All right, so here we can see, let me make sure you guys can see the results. All right, you can. Okay.
Yeah, we can.
All right, perfect. All right, so we have 38% of you that have said that you are not sure as far as where your LEAs are in, preparing and, completing their ECDS submissions. So that's not a bit concerning, but I would certainly follow up on those just to make sure the LEAs know what kind of a timeline they have as far as working for their ECDS submissions. And it's not as concerning anymore with the new update that Ed provided that the ODS is going to allow where the LEAs can make any corrections to the PIEMS demographic information up till August 17th, that July 20th is no longer the cutoff. So not too concerning. We have 31%, I'm sorry, let me see here. Just trying to maximize my screen here. For some reason, Sean, can you share okay, there we go. I had a slight delay there. All right, so 31% of you said that 75% of the LEs have not started preparing their ECDS data. So at this point, if you're one of those folks that responded that 75% of the LEs have not started preparing their ECDS submission, can I get a few folks to provide some more context around that? You know, what is delaying them, or what are they waiting for? Can you provide us with more information on that?
You get a raise a hand. Anybody want to just elaborate or chat that through? Connie has a comment, working on PIEMS resub.
Okay, all right. So Connie, what are your plans as far as you're working on PIEMS resub, and then once all that information looks good, once PIEMS is all finished, is the idea then you'll start working on completing your ECDS submission?
Let me take Connie off of mute real quick. Connie, if you don't mind, let me take you off of mute. Hey, Connie.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I do know that I have a few districts that have started, even though they're working on restub, but most of them are saying I got to get through my PIEMS before I have the time to start working on the ECDS for prepare.
Okay.
So yeah, the plans are as soon as that's over to get back in touch with everybody and see what their plan is for me.
Okay. All right, and then we also have a comment from John. Hours are trying to finish PIEMS. All right, so it seems like a lot of LEAs are going to be using that PIEMS Summer 2, where they're going to be resubmitting. And so once that's all taken care of, then it makes sense. Then they will start working on their ECDS submissions. Julie's story says in rural school districts, the PIEMS coordinator is often the ECDS contact, so they have to focus on PIEMS. In school district where PIEMS coordinator is not the ECDS person, the ECDS person, for example, the teacher or principal, is already gone for summer before PIEMS is even finished. Okay, all right, so it seems like that may be causing some of the delay and therefore explaining some of the percentages where the LEAs haven't even started preparing their data. Okay. Coordinators need to verify accuracy of PEIMS data before turning it over to ECDS staff for reporting ECDS data. Very true, John. I would expect that for, majority, if not all of the LEAs, and that's because the demographic and other information is coming from the PEIMS summer collection. So thank you very much for all of your feedback. All right. So for those LEAs that, I'm sure they're familiar with the process. If they haven't started, once again, we just really want to emphasize that, you should start preparing your ECDS submission as soon as possible. And when you're looking at your ECDS reports and you want to QA the data, look at the following reports. So for KG, we have the data submission report, the assessment completion report, the assessment summary, and then the incomplete assessment data. You want to make sure that the incomplete assessment data doesn't show any students, because that means that there's incomplete assessment data. Look at those reports. Make sure that what you see on those reports is accurate. And so really QA the data before you mark the the collection as complete. And then the same thing for the pre-K. Make sure you're looking at the students' demographic information, their assessment information. Look at the assessment pre-K sources information, completion, missing assessment data. I know we've added new elements this year in the PEIMS summer collection, such as the homeroom indicator, the PK curricula code, the family engagement plan link. Those are just a few that I can think of that have been added to the PEIMS summer collection that weren't there last year. So when you're looking at your data, when you're preparing your data, run the validations, look at your reports, QA the data, make sure everything looks accurate, and then click on complete so that you're not having to click on that reset button to go through the steps again. And then for LEAs that are not doing a PEIMS Summer 2 submission, they'll be able to prepare the ECDS data using the PEIMS Summer 1 submission. And so basically I will walk you through each of the scenarios where I will kind of talk more about that. But basically what the system does when you are in the ECDS application and when an LEA clicks on that prepare button, what the system will do is it will pull the most current data from the ODS when you click on that prepare button. So if the LEAs are not doing a PEIMS Summer 2 submission, they can prepare the ECDS submission using the PEIMS Summer 1 submission. Okay, so the way the system works is it's going to use the most current data that's in the ODS. So we'll walk through each of those scenarios, but I just want to kind of begin by saying that when you click on that prepare button, that core collection data mart is going to hold whatever most current data is in the ODS. So for LEAs that are not doing a PEIMS Summer 2 submission, it's going to pull from the PEIMS Summer 1 submission. Okay, so just make sure whatever data you intend to use is what you have in the ODS, and we'll talk about more scenarios in the next section as far as if you need to run a delete, but I'll leave you with that much information for right now, and then I'll give you more as we move on. All right, so before we get into the scenarios, I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about the required interchanges that are needed for the different categories and subcategories for the KG, public pre-K, and private pre-K programs. We are still getting tickets on this issue right here where the LEAs are submitting tickets saying we're seeing a 0 record count. when they're trying to prepare their data. And so hopefully with the following information, you'll be able to stop the tickets at level 2 and resolve them, or return the tickets back to level 1, with the following information that I give you. So we're trying to reduce on the number of tickets that are coming up to level 3, and so hopefully this will help you with the error message that the LEAs are getting, where in red, if you see here, it says the required data missing. Your pre-K KG collection is missing required data. So this message will display if the PEIMS demographic and assessment data is not loaded in the ODS. And so when you click on that prepare button, what the system's trying to do is it's trying to pull the most current data, whether it's PEIMS Summer 1 or for those LEAs that are using PEIMS Summer 2, it's trying to pull the most current data from the ODS and pull it into the core collection data mart, and then it's trying to populate those records that you see right here in this column. In this example, this error message is being displayed and it shows 0 record counts for the basic subcategories and assessment subcategories because there's no data in the ODS and the LEA clicked on the prepare button. So you will also get this error message if you have some of these categories and subcategories missing. So what I'd like to outline is for each of the different program types, these are the required interchanges that are needed to be loaded into the ODS so that when you click on that prepare button, you have those record counts populated and you don't get that error message. So for the Kinder program, for the PEIMS summer files, here are the interchanges that are required to be loaded, and then in the second column it's going to populate the record counts for each of these categories and subcategories. All right, and then the same thing for the assessment data from the TSDS collection. For the Kinder programs, they're going to need to load the assessment metadata and student assessment interchange. So these two interchanges need to be loaded through the TSDS collection so that you have record counts with the greater value than 0 for the assessment metadata subcategory and student assessment. Okay, so that's for your kindergarten program. And for the public pre-K, same thing. You need the following interchanges that are going to come from the PEIMS summer files, and here are the categories and subcategories that are going to be populated for those record counts. And then for public pre-Ks, this is optional. You're going to see a 0 record count, so it's going to display a 0 if there are no pre-K special ed students for student category and campus subcategory. So for the interchange student program extension, if you see a 0 record count and if you don't have any pre-K special ed students, that is okay. All right. But if you do have special ed students, then you got to make sure that that number matches the number of special ed students that you have. Also for the public pre-K, this is optional right here, unless if you are administering a commissioner approved assessment. So this is going to show a record count of 0 for the assessment metadata and student assessment. But like I said earlier, if that public pre-K is administering a commissioner approved assessment, then make sure those record counts match up with what you have in the template. So this right here is just a quick table, a table that the LEAs can reference that shows them the required interchanges for public pre-Ks. Same thing for private pre-Ks. Here are the required interchanges. And if you notice, this is the same as last year. The demographic information is going to come through the TSDS collection. So this is the template that the private pre-Ks will be completing. Here are the categories and subcategories that you need to verify to make sure those record counts are accurate. Once again, if this data is not loaded into the ODS through the TSDS collection, you're going to see 0 record counts with that error message in red that I showed you earlier. Okay, so make sure you have the following interchanges with these categories and subcategories populated. For a private pre-K, this is optional once again, same as for the public pre-K. If you see a 0 count, and if you don't have any special ed students, that's okay. But if you do, then you got to make sure that the record count is reflective of what you have and that that information matches up to what you have in your spreadsheet. For private pre-Ks, this is going to be removed in a future release. And this is because the private pre-K programs submit data at the campus level. The ed.org category and the subcategory for local education agency, that's going to show 0, and that's going to be fine. That's because, you know, those private pre-Ks, the information is submitted at the campus level. So this will be removed in a future release, but we just wanted to let you know about that. All right, so before I move on to the next section, do we have any questions around, you know, that error message that you will see on the Prepare tab when you click on Prepare, and if you see 0 record counts? And once again, you know, if you want to verify or check all of the required data that is needed for each of the different program types, we have a complete list of all the interchanges, complex types, data elements, and examples for each of the ECDS collections in TED section 10. Okay, but I thought these 3 slides would be helpful in providing to your LEA so that they have this as a quick reference. Sean, do we have any questions before
Nope.
I go on to the next section?
Nope, currently there's no questions.
Okay. All right. So this next section, you know, as a team, we came up with these few scenarios just to provide you with some guidance as far as what steps you need to take in, you know, preparing and completing your ECDS submissions. Can you have more scenarios? The LEAs are going to be in different situations. They will be under different circumstances. This is just a basic guidance, and so we have 4 scenarios to share with you, just so you can kind of understand, you know, if you're using data that's from PEAM Summer 1 versus PEAM Summer 2, and if you've already completed the ECDS application. So this is just going to kind of give you the different steps as a general guidance. So the first scenario we have is where an LEA discovers that they have a KG or pre-K data issue in their PEAMS Summer 1 submission that needs to be corrected that will impact their ECDS data submission. Now for this LEA, the ECDS submission has already been completed. Okay, so this is your LEA. They're kind of like that early bird. They've already got their ECDS submission completed, so they're in completed status. And now they discover that they have a data issue, whether it be in the KG or pre-K program. I want to know from you, what should be the steps? What steps would you advise if you got a ticket with this particular scenario from one of your LEAs? what would be the steps that you would tell them to follow to make sure that they have the correct information in their ECDS submission? And feel free to type in your steps in the chat box. However, I'm going to look for one brave volunteer that we can unmute to help me in understanding what this LEA should do that finds a data discrepancy. But you know what? They thought they were done with their ECDS submission.
Don't see any volunteers yet.
All right. Well, how about I give you this first one, okay? We're kind of warming up. All right. So because PEAM Summer 1 submission is already closed, and we're in PEAM Summer Submission 2, what this LEA is going to do is they're going to extract their PEAM Summer 2 submission from their SIS that has that correct information. They're going to load the PEAM Summer 2 files into the ODS. And now in this particular situation, because this LEA has already completed their ECDS submission, they need to click on that reset button in the ECDS application so that they can re-prepare that data. When they click on that prepare button, it's going to pull, the system's going to pull the most current data from the ODS. So it's going to pull the new information from the PEAM's Summer 2 data that was loaded. Okay? And then the LE will need to rerun the validations, make sure they run the reports, verify all the student demographic, course section, and staff information is correct, and then mark their submission as complete. How many of you find these steps helpful? Do you think this is something you can put into your tickets when you get these, if you get this kind of a scenario coming in through TIMS where an LEA says, you know what, I was done. I'm done with my ECDS submissions, but now I find a data discrepancy. Well, do I need to send it in through Summer 2? What do I need to do? All right. So steps are very helpful. Okay, great, great. So this is coming from our SME, Ed. So shout out to Ed. You know, he helped me in coming up with these, and hopefully the next 3 will be just as useful. All right, second scenario. An LEA discovers that they have a KG or pre-K data issue in their PEAM Summer 1 submission that needs to be corrected that will impact their ECDS data submission. Now this particular LEA, they have not completed their ECDS submission, okay? So just one step is missing here. They're not going to take one extra step here. Can somebody chime in and tell me what this LEA will need to do? So same thing here. We have a data discrepancy, but we're not completed, okay? So think of it on the ECDS application. If you're not in completed status, what are the other statuses that you have? All right. No need to reset the ECDS collection. Very good. Upload Summer 2. Don't reset, just re-prepare. All right, great. And there you go. So what the LEA will need to do is once they've updated their SIS with the correct information, they will extract their PEAM Summer 2 submission data from their SIS, upload into the PEAM Summer 2 collection in the ODS, re-prepare their data in the ECDS application. Once again, what this will do is when they click on the prepare button, it's going to pull the most current information. So because we have PEAM Summer 2, that information is going to override that PEAM Summer 1 data that's in the ODS. Okay? And so click on that prepare button, run your validations, run your reports, make sure all the information looks good, before you click on that complete button. All right, so the difference between that first scenario and second scenario was the first one, the LEA had already completed their ECDS submission. And this one, they weren't in completed status. They had not completed their ECDS submission. All right, thank you for that. All right, here's the third scenario here. This is where an LEA extracts their PEIMS Summer 2 data for resubmission for ECDS and loads into the ODS, but later discovers there were no errors in their PEIMS Summer 1 submission, and their ECDS submission has already been completed. So this is where an LEA panics. You know, they've already completed their ECDS submission, and they think they need to correct their PEIMS data. So what they do is they upload the PEIMS Summer 2 files, but then they're like, you know what? I don't have any errors in my PEIMS Summer 1 submission. So now they have that PEIMS Summer 2 data in the ODS, and so the question here is, what should this LEA do? No worries. Data is just in the ODS. I like that. No action is necessary. Don't need to do anything. All right. What we're going to tell you to do is, just to be on the safe side, is this LEA, what they should do is they should run the delete PEIMS Summer LEA script using, you know, with the 2017 Summer 2 delete, and delete that information from the ODS. Okay? That way, just in case, if that LEA, you know, happens to click on that prepare button, it's not going to pull that PEIMS Summer 2 information into their PEIMS, into their ECDS application. So you all are right. They don't need to do anything, but you don't want to have unnecessary information in the ODS if it's of no use. So in this case, what we would advise you to do is, if you're not going to use that PEIMS Summer 2 data, then, you know, delete it. And that's the delete that you're going to run is that delete PEIMS Summer delete, which is the hammer delete. You know, you're going to just take out all that information from the Summer 2 collection. And so, David, you are right. What they could do is delete all of their Summer 2 out of the ODS. Yes, that is correct. Okay. The last scenario we have is where an LEA extracts PEIMS Summer 2 data for resubmission for ECDS and loads into the ODS, but later discovers there were no errors in the PEIMS Summer 1 submission and wants to use this data. Okay, so the ECDS submission have not been completed. So the last scenario was where they were in completed status. This one, they are not in completed status. Okay. So on this one, I kind of need all of you guys to chime in and give me your input as far as what guidance would you give to this LEA that is not in completed status in their ECDS submission, and they load their PEIMS Summer 2 data, but there are no errors. There's nothing wrong with the data that they have in their PEIMS Summer 1 submission. Okay. All right. Sounds good. So Shari's saying delete Summer 2 from the ODS, re-prepare or prepare, very good, run reports to verify, and then complete. Kayla's saying they need to delete the Summer 2 data and then prepare their data. Excellent. So here's what you're going to need to do for this particular LEA. Because they're not intending to use that PEIM Summer 2 data, it's best that they delete that PEIMS Summer 2 data using this Summer 2 data collection, remove that information, and then the LEA will need to prepare or re-prepare their data. And that way, what that will do is it will look for the most current information. So if we remove that PEIMS Summer 2 information, it's going to default to the PEIMS Summer 1 data that's in the ODS. And then the LEA clicks on the prepare button, runs their validations, runs the reports, verifies all the data is correct, and then they can click on complete once they're ready. Okay, so the main purpose for walking you through each of these scenarios is just so you can understand that depending on where the LEA is in their ECDS submission, and depending on where their PEIMS data is, if they intend to use PEIMS Summer 1 or PEIMS Summer 2, you know, it's going to be a little different. So whatever you intend to use is what you want to have in the ODS. If you accidentally load PEIMS Summer 2, and if you don't intend to use that, you know, remove that data by running those deletes in the ODS. Any questions around these 4 scenarios as far as the steps the LEAs will follow in helping them complete their ECDS submissions? Okay. Sean, do we have any other questions?
Nope. Nope, doesn't show any additional questions now.
Okay. All right. So we're kind of moving towards the end of this webinar. For ECDS, we have some updates on some known issues that we've been continuing to provide updates through the weekly FCN calls and the newsletters. And so just wanted to give you some updates on that. The first one is there's a known issue with the record counts on the Prepare Finalize tab. And so if an LEA completes their ECDS KG collection and now they need to re-prepare their pre-K collection, the record counts for that Ed or Campus and Assessment Metadata subcategory shows 0. And so we are aware of that. And then the same is true if an LEA tries to complete their ECDS, the pre-K collection, and now they need to re-prepare their KG collection, it's going to show that 0. We are working to resolve this issue. There will be a code fix, and the release date for that right now is tomorrow, 7/14. In the meantime, if you have this issue, please advise your LEAs to submit a TIMS ticket, for any assistance, and we can provide them with some guidance. But just know that we are aware of this issue and we have a fix, and it's going to be in tomorrow's release for 7/14. The second known issue we have is with the duplicate assessment information. And so this is where the ECDS report, so report 004, which is the kindergarten data submission, and the pre-kindergarten data submission 006 displays duplicate assessment information. And so this is just a cosmetic issue. It does not affect the calculations or any of the roll-ups or when the data is being tallied up or anything like that. It's strictly a cosmetic issue. And so LEAs can still complete their ECDS submissions even if they see the duplicate information, assessment information for their pre-K and KG students. And so that fix will be, August 4th is the date that we have. If that changes, we will communicate that in the FCN newsletter and in the FCN calls. But that is once again just cosmetic. and we have that slated for the August 4th release to correct that issue. The third known item that we have, known issue that we have, is where the pre-K and KG collections are getting stuck during the prepare process. And I know we've been getting numerous tickets on this. We are monitoring the issue here on our end, and so we're being more proactive. If we see long processing times, we're trying to be proactive as far as looking to see if this is taking longer than usual, and we're reaching out to those LEAs or ESCs. But if you have an LEA that's trying to prepare their ECDS submissions, and if they're experiencing that problem, and if it's taking longer than usual, have them submit a TIMS ticket, and then we will work with them, whether it be resetting the collection, but just have them submit a ticket. But I just want to let you guys know that this has been an ongoing issue, but we are monitoring the issue, and so if anything takes longer than we think it should take, we will be reaching out to you. So these are just quick updates on these three known issues. If there are any known issues that the LEAs are reporting to you, just follow the same process. Please have them submit a TIMS ticket. And then we have additional information on these known issues in the known issues report that's part of the weekly FCN newsletter, along with the known issues for other TSDS applications. So, but these are just the top three that were generating a lot of TIMS tickets that I thought I would just provide you quick updates with. All right, just quick reminders. Just understand that anytime you have PEAM Summer 2 data, it will override the PEAM Summer 1 data in the ODS. And so if you have an LEA or the private pre-K programs, if they click on that prepare button, it's going to pull whatever is the most current information from the ODS into the core collection data mart. Okay, so just be conscious of that. If you intend to use the PEAM Summer 2 data, then you leave it by all means. If you don't, then make sure you run the delete and remove that data from the ODS. So whatever the situation the LEA's in, make sure they understand the impact. Once again, run all your ECDS reports and verify the data before completing the submissions. We've had LEAs where they've ran all their validations, and so they're able to complete their submissions, but then they're having to reset their submissions because they found some discrepancies in their reports. So please do not just stop after you run those validations. Look at those reports, QA the data, make sure that the students, staff, demographic information, assessment information, that the assessment type, whatever it is, depending on what report you're looking at for the different program types, that the information, that there's data integrity, that it's accurate before you mark the submissions as complete. We still get a few tickets around, why they're not able to complete their submissions for ECDS. It's just like PEAMS, it has to be fatal-free. So if the LEAs miss, running validations, when they click on that complete button, the system is going to initiate that process where it's going to run the validations. All right? And if you have any fatals, you're not going to be able to complete. That complete button's not going to well, that complete button is going to be there, but you have to be fatal-free in order to complete that submission. And then once again, it's that ECDS data approver that has, the privileges to click on that reset button. And so if you have LEAs that are completed, and if they need to reset their ECDS submission, use that reset button, and then that will reactivate the prepare and complete button in the ECDS application. Here are KB articles that we have in the TIMS knowledge base. Even though these are older KB articles, for example, KB 245, that general FAQs, we're going into that same KB article and we're just entering more questions, more responses if we feel like we're seeing, a trend of tickets coming in. So although these are older KB articles, the information is constantly being updated. So before, the LEAs create a ticket, please encourage them to look at these KB articles, because we're not going to create new KB articles if we already have existing KB articles where the information can just kind of, be plugged in as an update. And so here's a list of all the KB articles. If you need to request any teal roles, if you need to request S numbers that need to be assigned for the private pre-K programs, if you need any information on the assessment matrix, what kind of assessments, for the different program types, all of that information has been captured, and we have all of the information in these KB articles. And then, of course, we have a link here to TED Section 10, where you can see all of, the interchanges that are required for the different program types with the categories, subcategories, data elements and examples for each of the ECDS collections. Here
hey,
we
Shabana,
have, yes?
Apologize. You have a question that came through from Renee Warner.
Okay.
Just asking, am I confirming if a public pre-K conducts a commissioner-approved assessment, it is optional to submit the assessment data unless they are HQ-PK?
So if you're a public pre-K and if you are administering a commissioner-approved assessment, then you need to submit the assessment information, okay? Yes, and so if you're administering a commissioner-approved assessment, if you're a public pre-K, you need to make sure you have both pieces of data. You need to have, your demographic information as well as the assessment information for the public pre-K.
Okay. Renee, does that answer your question?
All right, so we'll give...
When is it optional?
It's optional if you are not administering a commissioner-approved assessment. But if you're a public pre-K and if you're administering a commissioner-approved assessment, then it is required. You're welcome. All right, and then Renee, to your point, if, that was a great question. More information on all the different assessment tools as far as what is on the Commissioner's approved list of assessments can be found in TED Section 10. And then we also have a link to the ECDS collection template, the TAA letter, and then the validation tool. I do believe we have a newer version of the validation tool. Please make sure you advise your LEAs that they're using the most current version of the validation tool. I don't want to give you the incorrect version, but please just have your LEAs make sure they're using the most current version. And Sean, if we can check to see what the most current version is, but if the LEAs try to update their validation tool, it's going to give them the most latest version. So if we can get a version number, Sean, please. And all right. Michael says it's 3.66. Thank you very much. Okay.
Got it.
All right.
Yep, he's right.
Okay, let me see if we have any other questions.
Don't show any other questions right now. Just a comment from David Taylor, but I think he was addressing an earlier comment you made.
Okay. All right. So with that said, does anybody have any questions about anything we discussed? And you know what? We have Ed on the call, and since we have a few minutes, why don't we unmute Ed so that he can just provide some additional information in case I missed something, Sean?
Yep. Let me take him off mute. There he is. Hey, Ed.
Siobhan, I just wanted to correct you. There hasn't been any recent updates to the conversion, or I'm sorry, the validation tool. It was to, I just want to make sure that everybody's using the most recent version of the ECDS spreadsheet if they have assessment information.
Oh, okay.
That version 1.2.
All right, I apologize about that. So there's a updated version to the ECDS spreadsheet.
It wasn't updated. It's been out there. I just want to make sure that everybody is using that one.
The most
better version, yeah. If they wanted to start those.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Ed. Did you have anything else, Ed, that we need to let the ESCs know about that I missed?
No, I think you covered everything.
All right. Thank you. I am done, Sean, if you'd like to provide last-minute updates.
Nope. I just have just want to let you guys know if you guys were not able to get your hands on the materials from yesterday's refresher as well as today's refresher, please let us know. Just send us a chat, and we can send that out to you via email and an attachment if you, for some reason, didn't get access to the materials from these two refreshers we've done. And we do record the refreshers only for quality assurance, for internal quality assurance. However, we don't distribute the recording out to you guys, unfortunately. But just to let you guys know that if you're looking for the recording, that's why you won't receive one. And I believe that's all I have. Deborah, did you have any final thoughts, or David?
I think I'm good.
No, I don't have anything. Thanks, Sean.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate your time, and we enjoyed you guys over these last couple of days. You guys have a great rest of your week, and